I'm running because it's just an important election this year. We need representation that looks like the rest of the population here, for representation for the working class and the middle class and people that understand what the obstacles are going forward. I'm a clinical psychologist by trade, so I'm not your typical politician. So I will be going at this from a mental health or mental wellness standpoint and sort of how our policies affect that. So I think it's a perfect time to have a psychologist in office.
Tell me, how has your campaign been so far?
It has been exhilarating. It's been amazing. We won our primary election, of course, by astronomical margins. So people were really surprised by that. We won 90 of the 92 counties, 32% versus our 68%. So we really, really nailed it for the primary. And then here comes the general election. I'll be running against Jim Banks. And we are finding a lot of energy around the state. We were feeling a lot of energy anyway after winning the primary, but then when Kamala Harris jumped on board and then she was tagged by Biden to run for president, then we saw another energy surge, and that has continued to snowball. So it's been exciting all around the state. So every event we went to that's normally, you never know how many people are going to be there, a few here, a few there. It's usually been standing room only, or all the seats are sold, or that sort of thing. So the enthusiasm is there. Okay. So that part is exciting.
Tell me, why should Hoosiers vote for you?
I think right now Hoosiers are longing for integrity and character. And they also want someone who's going to fight for what's important, especially women's rights issues, especially the everyday around the table issues such as affordable wages and affordable housing, bigger wages, affordable housing, things that make sense, those kitchen table issues that matter to Indiana Hoosiers. I think they're wanting someone who can kind of come at this in a no-nonsense fashion, call what is. And as a psychologist, I'm also a listener. But I also can cut through the chase. I can also cut through to what is the problem and how do we solve this. And I think Hoosiers are ready for that and longing for that, and I'm ready to get to work.
Tell me, your opponent, Mr. Banks, talked about immigration and border security. Can you talk to us a little bit about what your thoughts are, your policies, your plan?
Well, we've been to the border. We've spent some time down there. We took classes down there. We got to know the citizens down there near that area. And one of the things that I was constantly reminded of is that people don't want to leave home. They want to stay home. So there's dire circumstances that make them trudge over that border. There are things that they're looking for, things that they need, and it's mostly safety. They need safety. They need to have a life that's not so dangerous. And so we need to accept that and make sure that we have laws in place that makes that transition smoother. And the Biden administration, they did a good job as far as across the table. They presented a bill that made sense, that was going to make sure that people had a faster process, make sure that there was security there. But of course, that bill was stopped. As far as for me, just like I said, I'm reminded of the issues that are causing people to migrate in the first place. One of the things we're going to have to look at as well, as with global warming, people will be migrating around the globe, and countries need to come together to figure out what we can do, how we can intervene, how many we can accept, in a humane way, so we're welcoming and we're ready for the migration that's coming around the country, around the globe. We've got to get ready for this. It's just how it is right now until we get this climate thing under control.
Okay. Just one question that we're asking everyone. WTHR, we asked our viewers and our readers to name the most important issues that are driving them to the polls. What do you feel that is?
For the women, The most important issue. Women and families, the most important issues is women's rights to choose what happens with their own bodies. And I'm right there in there for that. There are so many things that are connected to that. Hospitals, OBGYNs, we're leaving women, the population of women, vulnerable to not having enough care because we're losing hospitals, maternity wards, we're losing that access for women in general to get a hysterectomy or being able to diagnose those issues. So that feeds into our economy as well, because think about it, who wants to come here and stay here if we're worried about those issues? So we have to have a make sense world so that people want to come here. We're going to have that brain drain. We're having that brain drain where people who should be staying here at home and staying here and contributing to Indiana, the place that they grew up, they're leaving. And they're leaving because they worried about health care and the privacy issues. We have to reverse that because it's connected to so much. And of course, wages have to make sense. We're at $7.25 an hour here. That makes no sense in Indiana. It doesn't make sense for anywhere in the world, basically. And then housing, of course, is so astronomically expensive all of a sudden, and people, especially on fixed incomes, are having a hard time adjusting to those additional $200 or $300. It doesn't make sense. And the taxes, property taxes. There are so many things that are bothering Hoosiers right now. And we can resolve that at national level, and also support the campaigns down the ticket, so we can also address the supermajority that has got us in this bind in the first place here.
Which brings me to my next question, just about unity. How do you unify the parties, the people, Indiana?
You know, the thing about it is I've been a psychologist all around the state. I work in prisons and I work with the military as well. So I'm all over the state in these small towns. Remember, prisons are in these small little towns. So I've always had those relationships. I've always had relationships with the different mayors and different people around the state. And that will continue. And as a psychologist, I know that we have I get the behind the scenes situation, so I know that we have more in common than we have separate. Whether or not it manifests differently or people are feeling it differently might be something different, but we all know someone, for example, that we're either afraid of or afraid for because of their mental health issues or drug issues or stress issues. So we can come together even if it's around those issues to make sure we're combating the right things. As a psychologist, of course, that's my job, is to build relationships and develop relationships and heal relationships on every level. And so we take what I know on a personal level, and we do deal with that as a group and as a nation as a whole. We're ready for this. We can, and not to mention the fact that Indiana Hoosiers are tired of the bickering. They're tired of being divided against each other. They're tired of this scenario where we're fighting each other. We're seeing, when we're doing the parades, for example, we're seeing less and less hostility. We're seeing more and more people ready to listen, and we just need to lean into that and be available for those conversations.
Okay. Do you have any other top priorities?
You know what? I have a lot of top priorities, but one of the things I do want to talk about is that my opponent has refused to debate. And I think that he owes it to the Indiana Hoosiers to stand up and say why he's for these things, why he's voted for why he wants massive deportation. He needs to stand up and talk about why he's voted for women's rights issues to be taken back. He is for a national abortion ban. He is behind that Project 2025. He's part of all of that. I think he needs to stand up to Indiana Hoosiers and explain his positions on these very things. So I think it's interesting that I am the first female to be on the ballot for U.S. Senate here in Indiana, right? Ever in the history. And never before in the history of Indiana has a senatorial candidate refused to debate the other major senatorial candidate. So this is saying something. It's saying that he's not willing to, maybe not willing to listen to women at a time when women need to be heard. I don't know what his philosophy is, but that's how it's appearing. And at this particular point, it's just disrespectful, not only for women and me, but for Indiana Hoosiers in general. respect our process, respect our democracy.
There's only days to go before people, have said that this is a historic election.
Absolutely, absolutely.
In those final days, what are you going to be focused on?
We're going to be focused on making sure that everyone around the state of Indiana has an opportunity to be heard and be a part of the process. We are stretching out to those folks that normal campaigns forget about. And we want to make sure that we get the international community. We want to make sure that we get the young folks on board. We want to make sure we get the influencers and those people that have the ear of the young folks. We want to make sure they all get on board because this is their future we're talking about. And I want them to have a say in this voting process because we're lining things up for them and we want it lined up for them to take over. I'll be kicking this door open. But they need to rush in behind me and be ready to take over their lives, their future. So they need to be at the table now.
And that's what brings me to my next point. As far as you being a newcomer, in a state that is very red, what is your response to that?
I don't think it's as red as you think. We voted in Obama. I think that we're just a low turnout state. And as more Democrats turn out, you're going to see that we're not red. I don't think we've ever been that red. And the composition of Indiana is changing with different industries coming in. I think we're going to see at least a blue wave. If not, we'll see at least a purple wave, but we'll definitely, I'm leaning towards the blue wave. I think we can't afford to keep falling into that narrative that we're a red state. We are a people state, and we can come together as one. Under a Democratic ticket, it doesn't matter, but it matters that we're unified.
I asked your opponent this: if former President Donald Trump wins, or doesn't win, and Madam VP Kamala Harris wins, what happens?
Which one are you asking me?
So he was in support of former President Donald Trump. And I asked him, I said, well, what if he doesn't win? What happens? Do you have if President Trump wins, if President Trump wins, we definitely need to put the gloves on and just do everything we can to make sure that we have policies in place or get policies in place to protect the regular citizens of the United States, to protect the middle and the middle income, the working class, all of us, to make sure that we fight at every turn to keep this continued pirating of the United States where all the money is going to the top. We have to fight that to make sure that the concerns of the average American is heard and make sure that we keep as much of the safeguards in place that they're trying to take away. So be going there with gloves on, ready to fight back, or whatever it takes. The goal is not to give up, no matter what. I think it would be a shame for America if that does happen. It would say a lot about us and what we're willing to give up. And that would be very unfortunate, but we'll deal with it. We'll learn how we'll deal with it, and we'll work with it, and we will fight against it as much as possible. Where we can work with Donald Trump, we will. But I am looking forward to working with Kamala Harris because I really, truly believe that the nation is ready and is going to do the right thing for us, for the whole nation. I think they're ready to get behind a good person and move this country forward. Okay. Anything else you want to add for us?
Vote. Everybody, get out there and vote. Vote like your life depends on it, because it really, really does. And I look forward to being your next senator.